Welcome to everyone watching the forces reshaping the global auto industry. On the 9th of July, 2026, Volkswagen's board faced a decision that could break an 89-year promise. How does a company reach the point of considering 100,000 job cuts and 4 German factory closures? What changed in China? Why did Volkswagen's software strategy fail? And how much damage did American tariffs cause? Why can German workers potentially block the entire plan, even when executives argue that survival requires radical cuts? This video explains the 3 systems now colliding inside Volkswagen and the difficult futures waiting at the end of that collision.
For 89 years, Volkswagen kept every German factory operating. The plants survived recessions, oil crises, and the diesel scandal. That tradition faced its greatest threat on July 9, 2026. Volkswagen's supervisory board gathered in Wolfsburg to consider a plan that could divide the company. For the first time, closing German factories was formally on the table. The proposed restructuring involved the loss of 100,000 jobs. That represented roughly 15% of Volkswagen's global workforce. 4 German plants were marked for closure: Hanover, Zwickau, Emden, and Audi's factory in Neckarsulm. Zwickau and Emden were expected to close by 2031. The Hanover plant would follow by 2032. Neckarsulm would remain until 2034 before closing. The first warning had already arrived in December 2025. Volkswagen stopped producing cars at its Dresden plant after more than 2 decades. The facility had opened in 2001 as a showcase for the company. Now it builds no cars at all. Volkswagen converted the Dresden site into an artificial intelligence research center. While the board met, IG Metall organized protests at 18 locations across Germany. Workers blocked factory gates as the decision was being discussed. They carried signs and described the proposed closures as a historic betrayal. Those workers are not powerless observers. Under German law, employee representatives hold half the seats on Volkswagen's supervisory board. That gives them the power to block the plan, and they say they will use it.
The conflict at Germany's factory gates is visible, but the pressure behind it began much farther away. Volkswagen did not suddenly decide to dismantle its industrial base. The crisis developed over years. To understand why the board reached this point, the trail leads directly to China.
For decades, China was one of Volkswagen's most powerful engines. The company invested billions in factories across the country. For years, Volkswagen dominated China's passenger car market. It eventually sold more vehicles in China than it sold in Germany. China became Volkswagen's private profit machine. That relationship helped build the company's global empire. Now, the same market is helping tear that empire apart. Volkswagen increasingly speaks about China as a problem rather than a prize. In the second quarter of 2026, Volkswagen's global deliveries fell by 8.6%. Almost all of that pressure came from China. Chinese buyers were switching to domestic brands that cost less and offered more. The New York Times described plunging Chinese sales as the reason Volkswagen was cutting production. China had been expected to serve as Volkswagen's financial safety net. It was supposed to protect profits, while Europe slowly moved toward electric vehicles. It was also expected to keep German factories operating at high capacity. Instead, BYD emerged as the leader of the new competitive threat. BYD overtook Tesla in global electric vehicle sales and reported record results. It also began building a factory in Hungary, placing production directly on Volkswagen's home turf. Its vehicles cost less and offer software that feels more modern than Volkswagen's electric lineup. Volkswagen helped teach China how to manufacture cars for the mass market. Now, Chinese companies are using a similar playbook to compete for Volkswagen's European customers. Volkswagen's ID models reached 1.5 million sales after the first ID.3 launched in 2019, but the company still moves more slowly and charges more than rivals such as BYD.
China explains the external pressure, but it does not explain the entire crisis. Some of Volkswagen's deepest wounds were created inside the company itself. Tariffs, software losses, and delayed vehicles turned competitive pressure into a financial emergency.
China was not Volkswagen's only source of damage. Some of the crisis was created by decisions made inside the company years earlier. American tariffs arrived like a second storm. During the first 6 months of 2025, Volkswagen lost 1.3 billion euros to new United States import taxes, roughly $1.5 billion. The company reduced its financial guidance twice in 3 months. It also issued 2 separate profit warnings. Full-year profits fell by more than half. Cost reductions in Germany could not compensate for damage on that scale. Behind the factory gates, Volkswagen's software division was losing money even faster. Cariad recorded more than $7.5 billion in operating losses across 3 years. Those losses consumed the company's hopes for a rapid digital turnaround. The total exceeded the combined operating profit of Audi, Bentley, Ducati, and Lamborghini. The money disappeared into software that Volkswagen could not successfully deliver. The company planned to cut 1,600 positions at Cariad by the end of 2025. The software failures delayed the electric Porsche Macan and Audi e-tron models by 16 to 18 months. 2 of Volkswagen's most important electric launches were pushed backward. The delays became so severe that Volkswagen dismissed its technology leaders in 2023. In July 2026, Cariad ended its autonomous driving partnership with Bosch. The decision acknowledged that the project had failed to make meaningful progress. Volkswagen also attempted to create its own operating system but did not succeed. The company built its reputation on engineering precision. Underneath that reputation, it was burning cash on technology it could not ship.
The damage is now visible in overseas markets, financial statements, and failed technology projects. But the final conflict is not only about losses. It is about who has the power to decide. 3 systems now face one another, and none can fully surrender.
Volkswagen is losing ground on several fronts, but the central question is who sits at the table and what power each side holds. The first system is Germany's legal protection of industrial workers. Through co-determination, employee representatives control half the seats on Volkswagen's supervisory board. That structure gives them veto power over factory closures and major layoffs. IG Metall has used that influence before and intends to use it again. The demonstrations at 18 sites on July 9th were a warning rather than a formality. Workers see the plan as a betrayal of the agreement that protected labor peace for almost a century. The second system is China's electric vehicle industry. It moves faster, produces at lower cost, and treats software as the heart of the vehicle. Its companies can arrive with state support and prices low enough to gain market share even at a loss. Volkswagen's labor contracts and board processes cannot operate at the same speed. The third system is management's attempt to rebuild Volkswagen. CEO Oliver Blume wants fewer factories, fewer models, fewer employees, and faster decisions. He sees a future in which production moves to lower-cost countries and German factories are no longer treated as untouchable. The plan may be rational from an executive perspective, but it is also brutal. These 3 systems cannot continue operating at full strength together. German law protects workers, but every delayed decision gives faster Chinese competitors more ground. Chinese competition punishes legacy structures, with new models arriving faster than a German committee can approve small design decisions. Management wants cuts that unions will resist, while the government is trapped because the auto sector represents roughly 5% of Germany's economic output. Allowing mass closures could become political suicide, while preventing them could become corporate suicide. Executives see a choice between cutting and dying. Workers see loyalty exchanged for financial results. Germany faces a choice about whether it will continue building cars at home. A union victory could preserve jobs through subsidies, but create a slower company dependent on the state. A management victory could create a leaner company while damaging towns and engineering talent. A hybrid could produce partial closures, government support, Chinese technology partnerships, and another decade without a clear identity. None of these paths is clean, because workers, taxpayers, or executives will carry the cost. Volkswagen was never only a car company. It represented Germany's attempt to combine industrial power with worker protection. The fight will test whether that system can survive decisions made in elections, protests, and showrooms across 2 continents. Follow for more clear explanations of the forces reshaping global industry.